My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and Cassandra, Video 10, Meeting Apollo, Part 4. So John the human meets with Apollo the god a number of times, and this is the fourth part. So here is my novella. John and Cassandra, fair is fair. Apollo, the big fellow, the god in the middle, the two humans, Cassandra and John, much smaller. Okay. Author John Passfield contemplates writing a novel about the mythological figure Cassandra. Suddenly, he finds himself in the presence of her tormentor, Apollo, the god, who seemingly as a whim has brought a catastrophic curse down on the head of an innocent human. John sees Cassandra as a mythical creature whose helpless situation epitomizes all that is wrong on the planet Earth. What a chance to confront a representative of the gods, ask him to explain such actions, and demand an immediate end to all the agony in the world. So in chapter 8, we have the final meeting between John and the god Apollo. It's John's final opportunity to persuade Apollo to undo the curse that Cassandra's visions tell her will lead to the deaths of herself and her captor Agamemnon. In chapter 8, Apollo speaks to John 6 times. Poor John doesn't get to say a word. Once he asks that question, why is there misery in the human world, and why don't you end it since you're an all-powerful God? After asking those questions, John just gets to listen. So here's Apollo talking to John. We'll go to chapter 8, page 47. And here we are. Apollo speaking to John. The gods seek balance, John, above all. We all sought to keep a balance in the Trojan War. Athena and Hera aided the Achaeans, myself, my mother Leto, even the great Zeus himself, all aided the Trojans. But we all had to live with a terrible, terrible thought. We all knew that Troy would fall, and that we were helpless to prevent it. So when the final catastrophe happened, John, when the horse was left on the beach, and the Achaeans breached the walls, well, human buildings were burned, and human lives were lost, and human agonies were multiplied like flies, of course. It was a terrible occurrence. Gods and humans would all agree. But it was a shock with cosmic implications, a greater shock, John, than a human could possibly know. The fall of Troy reminded us, John, of a limit to our powers. That fall was a reminder to all of us what we knew ourselves to be. We are as helpless, John, as humans. We are all Cassandras, John. We have terrifying knowledge, but we have not been entrusted with the gift of transformative power. We live with this knowledge in the depths of our minds, but on the surface of our minds we live and act with the illusion that we are in charge. Humans do good and humans do harm, John. Gods do good and harm as well, but there's a force far above us that governs outcomes that we can neither know nor understand. Limited power means that you have no power at all. And this is the primal curse, John. A curse for humans, of course, but you'd see it as a far greater curse if you were a god. So here's Apollo feeling more sorry for himself than for any humans who are suffering. Let's go on to the second segment in which Apollo talks to John in chapter 8. You humans, a curse upon you all. The wretchedness of my life is that I am patterned after you. Your flaws are my flaws. Your agonies are my agonies. Your mistakes are my mistakes. Your heartbreaks are my heartbreaks. I fell in love with a girl as humans fall in love. I was rejected as humans are rejected. I sought revenge as a human would seek revenge. The curse upon me is the curse upon you. I am made, John, in your image. I am you and you are me till the end of time. Well, that's his second outburst, Apollos. Let's go to Apollos' third outburst as he speaks to John. Here it is. Or is this the case? I wonder, perhaps it's not. Perhaps not at all. This, perhaps, is a double curse, one bitter and one mild, the handle and the blade of the same sharp knife. Now that I think of it, looking at you, John, there's a difference in all of this. I am immortal and you are not. I will go on for thousands of years and you will die. You will cease to care while I will live on and on. The gods have been placed beneath the humans in terms of their allotments of terror and pain. I will live on beyond this Cassandra, beyond Menelaus and his wandering wife, beyond Patroclus and Hector and Achilles and all the rest, beyond you, John, and all you humans who cause such tiny ant-like griefs in your own petty lives. This heart of mine will register shocks, searing, agonizing shocks, John, earth-shaking, lava-spewing shocks for all of time. Okay, that was the third segment. Let's go to the fourth then, of Apollo complaining to John, actually. And here's the fourth one. Apollo does all the speaking. All John can do is listen. Remorse? You want remorse? Reconciliation? Redemption? All these shallow, petty, illogical, purely human concerns? These are just thoughts, John, not facts. You think that stories all have endings, emotional baths that soothe the aches of mental sores, but every story is an ongoing saga. All the truths remain in place. Tomorrow the road will beckon and threaten with either hand. The rocks will be just as sharp as they are today. You have strayed from the path of inquiry to wander among the briars of emotional berry-picking, hoping to find a withered rose among the thorns. Do you think that the gods are here solely to serve humankind? Excuse me. Do you think that we are the servants and you are the gods? How can you have lived so many years and still be so naive? Haven't you had your bumps and scrapes? Haven't you had wars in your time and broken hearts and children falling and skinning their knees? Does the sun always shine where you come from? Sure, I have power over humans. I interfere in their lives all the time, but that they're perpetually happy is not my concern. Humans are expendable, John. Have you not realized that? When one of them falls off a cliff or tumbles into the dusty furrows or bleeds to death on the battlefield, there are always more. Yes, certain gods have favorite humans, and we nurture them along in our way, subject to the power of the other gods. I wanted to keep Cassandra safe and warm, but look what she's done. She turned against my gift. She turned against me. And a god is never happy when being scorned. I'm Apollo, the golden god. No one thwarts me and my will. No human will ever get the best of me. I will torment that girl until she lies in her grave. Okay, that was number 4. Let's look at number 5 of Apollo's rants, I guess you could call them. Oh, come on, John. Grow up. Face a fact or two for once. There are no gods. Get that through your head. We gods are a myth, a human construct, a product of the human imagination, a body of imagery and a pattern which comes from the deepest levels of the human mind, a pattern of images which seeks to embody in concrete artistic form the eternal human condition. Oh, sure, we gods might pass away. People cease to see us as a viable image pattern, but there'll be other myths constructed in the human mind. You can't get away from being human, John, which is essentially what you want. What you've been seeking, no matter how frantically you might try. So I'll read that again. You can't get away from being human, John, which is essentially what you've been seeking, no matter how frantically you might try. You will be human and think like a human while the agony and the ecstasy, the glory and the grime. And you will keep making myths, image patterns of your concerns till the end of time. Okay, and now the last of Apollo's comments, Apollo's rants against John. John, pity me, oh, pity me. I am made in the image of the human. That makes me a tragic figure. Nothing I aspire to can ever be achieved. I fall on my face and slide back down as I approach the last few footsteps at the top of the hill. Yes, I see myself as tragic, John, as tragic as any human you can name. I tried to right the imbalance, to take the wobble out of the flight, but I couldn't erase the flaw that lies at the heart of the universe. There's a lesson to my story, John. I have been made in the image of the human. I am an image in larger dimensions of humankind. And the human is the flaw at the heart of all things. Well, that's the last thing Apollo has to say in chapter 8. Now, here's a note that I wrote about this. I'm going to hold up the cover of a book that has not been written yet. So here's the cover. It's just sheets of paper. These are notes, and the cover is on the top of the sheets. Amy Semple McPherson, God and I, fiction by John Passfield, is going to say in a diagram. Okay, now, it will probably be the next novella that I shall write. As the title suggests, excuse me, Amy Semple McPherson, God and I, it's going to be about humankind's relationships with perceived supernatural powers. Following along from a note which I've just recorded in a previous John and Cassandra video presentation, strikes me that not only does serious literature have two components, okay? Component A is story, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and component B, a rhythm, which has two alternating elements, which will go on until the end of the universe. So too does religion. So not only does serious literature have two components, a story and a rhythm, so too does religion have two components, a story and a rhythm. If we think of the Psalms, there seems to be an ongoing battle, not only between psalm and psalm, but within some psalms, turning my page here, strikes me that one of the beliefs one might have in calling oneself religious is that God looks after his chosen people, whether in groups or as individuals here on earth. And this ensures that a story, a group story or an individual story, will have a happy ending. So I say to myself, as a religious person, my story will have 3 stages. Number 1, stage 1, I'm in difficult circumstances. Stage 2, I either accept or reaffirm that God is my God, and if I'm a Christian, that Jesus is my Savior. And then step 3, it will follow as a 3rd stage of my story, that my life will improve here on earth. This is where the telling of the stories of the enslavement of the chosen people usually end, with the release of the Israelites and their movement towards the promised land. It's also where religious testimonials by individuals usually end, with the improvement of the earthly life of the person who's giving the testimonial. Okay, now that's story. Let's go on to rhythm. The other way of thinking of oneself as being religious is to say that God is all-powerful, but that he's created the earth, even the universe, as an ongoing alternation of positive and negative forces. Abundance and paucity, captivity and release, triumph and failure, and so on. Through all of the positive and negative life experiences that are possible to individuals and to groups here on earth. This means that I might be caught in a negative cycle of this alternation of forces and not have a happy ending to my story. Excuse me again. No doubt many Israelites died in Egypt or in Babylon during the negative force phases with no personal or group relief during their lifetimes. Remember, Moses led the people and they wandered in the desert for 40 years. Well, some died during the 40 years and didn't see the promised land, but that's rhythm. That's not story. Okay. So it strikes me that the premise of my projected novella will be that Aimee Semple McPherson, the evangelist who becomes extremely popular in the 1920s and 1930s, will be a religious leader who will have to deal, both in her congregation and in her own mind, with these two conceptions of the role of religion as explanation myths in the lives of human beings: story, personal and group, and rhythm. Hopefully someday I'll be making video presentations on the book that will be published with this as its cover. So Aimee Semple McPherson, God and I, fiction by John Pasfield. Don't look for it in your bookstores. It hasn't been written yet. Okay, let me also hold up the topic of this reading, which is the cover of the topic of this reading, which is John and Cassandra, Fear is Fail. That is on Amazon. It's also on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com. On my website, johnpasfield.ca, you can find 2 books available for free. You just click on the cover icon and you can read them. The first is a planning notebook in which I planned and wrote the novella, and the second is a reflective journal. As I was polishing the novella for a month or 6 weeks, I wrote about all the things that a writer thinks about while polishing a work of fiction. So have a look at johnpasfield.ca, all one word, if you'd like to have a look at those books. Lastly, thank you for watching this video.